artists and animators, and welcome to today's interview. Nico Smania is an animator who works with cutout and traditional animation, currently working at Mercury Filmworks, and was the winner of Pitch This at the animation conference in Ottawa. We invited Nico onto our live stream to discuss his winning pitch, Port Harbour, and his thesis film in Sheridan, Scattershot, which feature the same characters. Nico, welcome to the stream.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
This is exciting. So for those who have not seen your thesis film yet, how would you describe Scattershot?
It's basically me doing my best to make something that feels like Cartoon Network collaborating with Guy Ritchie. And there's like, a little bit of maybe Disney spice in there, but yeah, it's what it is. It's like a really early installment of my current project, which is Port Harbour. And it tells the story of three friends being given a simple, mundane task and messing it up in the worst, most chaotic way possible. Like, it goes more wrong than it should be able to.
All right. And who are some of the characters that are involved in Scattershot?
So they all have weird names. They're named Nine, Kid, and Sticks. And Sebastian. Sebastian's the only one with a normal name. And Nine is sort of the like mom of the group. He's the one that tries to like keep everybody on track, and like Kid and Sticks are like the dynamic duo that just want to have fun and like mess everything up, and they don't really care if the task is done, and they just want to have fun. And Sebastian is kind of the like adult, like the guardian, the like older brother figure who they end up calling for help when things go wrong. So yeah, that's their dynamic, kind of. They're like a little found family.
So you posted your thesis film to YouTube, and something happened in that it doesn't usually happen with thesis films. He got over 1 million views. Yeah. How would you describe the response to your film, and what do you think people connected with?
I would describe it as overwhelming, in a good way. Like almost all of the feedback I've gotten on it is like positive, and people being like, turn this into a TV show, which is like really nice to see that people want to like see more of my characters. And like it, Scattershot really was just me being like as I was storyboarding it, I was like, wouldn't it be funny if this happened? And that was kind of just the whole film. So it's really like, rewarding to know that people think that my jokes are funny. Also because, it was a pandemic, like the pandemic hit right when we graduated. So I never actually got to show it to an audience. So like having that positive feedback was very assuring, I guess.
Yeah. But before we get into your experience at Pitch This, I was wondering if you can give our viewers a tour of the character rigs from your thesis film.
Absolutely. Yeah, let me just pull one of them up here. I'll start with Kid because they have 2 rigs, and that's kind of fun. Are we good to?
Yeah, I think everything's set up.
They see the screen? Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is Kid's rig. The rigs all look really like uncanny and off model in their default poses. But yeah, so I did a full rotation for each character. I think Kid's was probably a bit harder because they're not symmetrical. So I couldn't just like flip it to do the second half of the rotation. Yeah, so this is the node view. I'll make it a little bit bigger. It's been a while since
There are a number of things that make rigs challenging. Asymmetry is one of them. Giving your characters jackets is another one of them.
Mm-hmm. I did that, yes. I've got Sebastian here too. Back when he was skinny and I didn't have a beard. Oh, his rig is way less organized. I'm pretty sure his was the last one I made, so I was just like, I just need to get this done. But yeah, so I'll just sort of like walk through the hierarchy. He's got, this was one piece, and yeah, I don't know. That's the way his build was sort of stacked. I'm doing a really horrible job at explaining this, I think. Like these are 2 individual pieces that have deformers, and cut away this bigger piece here. I think I also only did half a rotation for him because, as I said, I was being lazy. It's not that good. Yeah, these things, here's a cutter that just cuts away that shape. This is its own piece, making folds and stuff. I'm trying to think about what would be interesting to see in a rig.
I think one of the cool things with Kids Rig is you had a demonic possession that you needed to design in this.
Yeah, so here's their possessed rig, and it has a line boil on it. I'll go in like really close so you can see it, and then if I put it in the render view, and hopefully it doesn't take 8,000 years, the lines are sort of animated, which, yeah, you can really only see in these two spots because it's the same pose. But yeah, so that was a color override, which I just sort of went in and modulated the pencil texture transformation. And then you just put a peg on it and you fill the cells randomly, which just makes them jittery. And it was a really cool
and
effect.
there are like 9 or 10 different ways to get like line boil effects in Harmony. This is one of the more straightforward ways, and it's a really like great effect because it makes things look like it's hand drawn and natural media.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, what were some of the design considerations that went into these rigs?
Design considerations. Here's okay. This one's kind of like really small and like not significant, and nobody probably noticed it but me. But Kid has these little bracelets, and it was important to me for whatever reason that the bracelets felt chunky. So I wanted to have this line only show on their skin, and the rest of it would just be the bracelet, so it felt like nice and chunky. And that took me a while to actually like figure out because rendering didn't work with a few of the renditions that I tried of it. But yeah, and I think I said this in the interview that I did for the article, but one of the things I really, really like about Toon Boom is just like the rigs are so organized, and or just it's a really good software to keep your work organized, like all of these color-coded boxes and stuff, and what else? Also the middle mouse click button. I love it so much. I didn't know about that until I started working at Mercury, and I was like, I've been living a lie this entire time. Yeah, so it's just a really great software. I'm like never confused about what's going on in a scene.
But as soon as we post, someone shares a rig on our live stream, we get questions like, "How could you ever deal with the node view? Node view is really complicated." And you mentioned like use backdrops, which are the little colored squares that can be used to make things organized. How do you organize the characters from the different pieces from your characters using the backdrops?
Yeah, so I mean, here I sort of organized it between like upper body, lower body. I probably like if I was doing it now, I would have one that was just head, upper body, lower body. So yeah, this, and you can see like it doesn't get bigger or smaller, but yeah, there's like the mouth, the hair, the face plane. I also am really, really particular about having things like, see, I just fixed it like without even, without needing to, but I'm really particular about having like all of the drawing nodes line up and all of the deformers like in a straight line and all of the pegs in a straight line, because it makes it really easy. If I need to like change the line width or something, I can just go throughout the whole rig and like select all of the drawings and they're all in the same place, and do it all at once. And it also just makes it really easy to read. One of the things that Sarah Wallace, who is my first rig teacher, like really like imprinted in our brains was like, keep your node view organized. Because like you're way more likely to get a job in rigging if your node view is organized. And I even go so far as to like abbreviate all of the like, you know, actual rigging nodes, like the cutters and auto patch and color selector and all of like line art, color art, but just because like it gets so messy when the full word is there for each one of them, and they take up so much more space, and then this just makes it way easier to have them all fit nicely into a little line. And
yeah, and being organized doesn't just make things a lot simpler for you down the line when you actually need to animate the rig. It also, if you're giving those rigs to another artist to work with, they can actually look at it and understand how it is put together and how they can operate it.
Absolutely.
So that's always important. How long was the design process on these rigs?
I think I spent about probably 2 to 3 days on each of them. So I was like, you know, it was thesis film, so I was really rushed, and I probably would have taken longer if I could. But yeah, I was just rigging for like 2 weeks straight, pretty much. And there were certain things like, I remember Nine's sleeves giving me a hard time initially because I didn't know. I wanted to make my rigs really efficient, so I wanted them to not be like ginormous files that would take 8,000 years to export, but I also wanted them to be as flexible as possible because I don't like using drawing substitutions that much. So there was something here like I wanted to be able to just use the same cutter for the upper and lower parts of his arm. So, and then, yeah, so I just flipped that basically, and if I just change the drawing, it will cut the opposite way. And that, I didn't even end up using it that much, but that was really important to me when I was rigging. Yeah, so I try to, if I can do as much with as, I try to do as much with as little as possible. Like his hands, again, something I barely used in animation, but his hands have like each individual finger and a palm, and I was like, okay, so I can like animate them with like pegs if I need to, and I'm pretty sure I only used drawing substitutions for his hands, but like, you know, I rigged them so I could animate them, you know, with pegs if I wanted to. I just try to give myself options.
Yeah. What would you say the most challenging aspect of these character rigs were, and what are you most proud of?
God, I feel like the most challenging thing in general when I'm rigging is when something goes wrong, because, you know, I really enjoy planning how to rig a character. So that's not, it's fun for me. It's like solving a puzzle. And then I'll get into rigging the character and it'll be going smooth and I'll be having a great time. And then as soon as something doesn't work, that's when it becomes a challenge. So I don't know that it's like one thing in particular, but like so many times I would be trying to use a cutter or an auto patch and it would look great in the OpenGL view, and then I'd go to the render view and there would be like a halo around the line where there was no color, and that was something that I fought with. I would be able to rig a character, like I'd be able to rig an entire face in like an hour, and then I would spend 3 hours just trying to like get one cutter to work because it wasn't working. And you know, I've done quite a bit of rigging for someone that doesn't work in rigging, and you know, when I get stuck on something like that, I just have to like kind of bite the bullet and put the time into trying to fix it because I'm stubborn. Yeah, so I'm sure that, you know, most people would just find another way.
You've shown us the rig for Nines, for Kid, and for Sebastian. Mm-hmm. Can we also see the rig for Styx?
Oh yeah, I just have to open it up.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. I'm glad I still have all of my thesis film stuff on my computer. I don't know why I haven't taken it off because it's taking up so much space, but part of me is all sentimental. I'm like, I don't want to take the folder out of my computer. Yeah. Styx's rig, I think, was probably the most simple one to do. She's a pretty straightforward character. I do have a rig of her new design too, but that wasn't in my thesis film, so this might take a second. Is there anything you want to see about the other rigs while we wait for her rig to open?
Yeah. Just curious if there are any elements of these rigs that you think are really cool that you want to show off to our audience. I do like the little cowlick on Kid.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Oh, it's one piece. I would definitely do that differently. This was probably another instance of me trying to make something as efficient as possible. Like, I'm pretty sure this is it looks like that, which it doesn't need to, but I was like, it'll be one drawing and I'll just use a deformer, and then when they rotate, I'll be able to just like slide it over, which works for the rotation, but like in hindsight, feels a little bit unnecessary. What's cool about them? I don't know. One thing my teacher Ryan Irwin also used to say a lot was the power of a rig is in its hierarchy, which I do agree with. Like, it's very meticulous. If I walk up the rig, I want to be able to like animate the limbs without, having to go in and reselect things as much as possible. Here we go. Here she is. So this is Styx's rig before she was a little green goblin. And another probably unnecessarily complex rotation. Let's see, what was interesting about her rig? I think this little like piece here, and I took a while to figure this out because when I drew her in my sketchbook, oh man, that's another thing. Whenever I rig a character, I always try to think about like how I draw them, and when I draw them, what pieces do I, what lines do I think of as like one piece? So if I go into Nine's rig, oh man, I didn't even show his hair. That's probably like the coolest part. So yeah, his hair, this hairline is just one piece that cuts away the hair from his face. So his hair is actually layered on top of his face, and then this cutter just like gets rid of it where it needs to. Because whenever I would draw him, this like hairline would always just be one line, and that was how I wrapped my brain around drawing his hair. So that was how I decided to rig it.
Okay. Yeah, I think one challenging thing for a lot of artists when they're working with rigs for the first time is just thinking with masks and cutters.
Yeah, for sure. It's one thing that Ryan also said to me was like, you don't need cutters. Like you can build a fully functional rig without cutters. And I was kind of like, what? But yeah, like there's certain things I've learned from working at Mercury and working with rigs that were built professionally by like professional riggers, where I've kind of I realized that I overcomplicated things for myself sometimes with these rigs. Like there are certain times where even like you don't need an auto patch to like completely cut the line away. You can just have the shape only have the line on the part where you see it. But I don't know if that made any sense. But where's a good example of something like that? I don't know if Styx has any. But okay, maybe her hair. I rigged her hair so that it would always cut the line wherever it touched any other part of the hair. And in some cases, it's more efficient to just have the piece of hair just have this little bit of the line, and the line stops where it meets the other hair, and then you can kind of, if you have a deformer on it, you can really choose where the line starts and stops. If you want it to overlap a little bit, if you want it to just be like a straight cut, like it just gives you more options.
Sometimes like a simpler solution gives you more choices.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning with her shorts, whenever I drew them, I always just drew them as like one shape, and so I decided to have this cutter in the middle instead of, I don't even remember what my initial like plan was for this, but this ended up coming in handy because her shorts, you know, they do fully cut the line away from each other. And then this gave me the option to sort of make them feel like one shape.
Yeah, I
And
think that's
still
a
have
really
that
clever
little hat.
solution.
Thank you. I feel like I just talk myself in circles whenever I talk about rigs because it makes so much sense in my brain, but then my mouth is just like cutters and nodes and yeah.
I mean, it's animation, it's a visual medium. Being able to
Yeah.
show people things is really helpful. This would be
Yeah.
much more difficult if it was a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, this would probably be really boring if it was just a podcast. Just and then this cutter and then look at this auto patch.
So these are rigs that you made while you were at Sheridan. If you could go back in time to the very start of this production, having now worked at a studio, is there any advice that you'd give to yourself?
Um I don't know if I'd give myself advice. There are definitely, like, I think I'm pretty happy with how production went on Scattershot. I for the most part, managed to stay on schedule. There's definitely things that I learned working at Mercury that I wish I had known before, just like Toon Boom tricks and little like tips here and there. One thing that I wish I had done earlier was I had my production schedule and you know, I would, if I fell behind, like if I was going to do like these 3 scenes today and I only got 2 of them done, I would just like move the other one down to the next day and sort of like rearrange my schedule every single day so that I always knew like all of my work that I had to do was still ahead of me and all of the work I had done was behind me. And that sounds very like, you know, obvious, but you know, for me, I didn't do that at first, and I was looking at my schedule and I had like 4 days of work behind me that I still had to do, and I was just like, oh god, I'm never gonna make it. And you know, there's nothing more stressful than like looking at everything that you should have done by now. So that was something that, you know, for my own, you know, peace of mind and also just being able to visually see how much time I had to do how much work was super helpful.
Yeah, so this is all stuff from your thesis film, and I really want to ask you about your pitch. So I guess the next question that would sort of fit into this would be, how did the concept and characters develop in the time between planning Scattershot and pitching Port Harbour?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I made Scattershot, all I really had were the characters' personalities and their relationship and their dynamics. So Scattershot is just a way to showcase them being themselves. The actual plot of it is very much its own thing, and I wanted to work with them, but I didn't have their actual story plan. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to tell this little like random one-off story that has nothing to do with their actual canon story. And I'm glad I did that because while I was in development on Scattershot, or when I was in production on Scattershot, I did, I think, the most important development on Port Harbour. Like figuring out that I wanted a sort of ocean nautical aspect to be part of it was something that, like, you know, really helped it take off, I think, in terms of development, like grounding it in something both aesthetically and story-wise. Once I grounded it in old sailor mythology and you know, like just ocean nautical like mystery stuff, that helped. Sorry, I'm
Yeah, well,
blanking.
it seems like it was sort of a thing
Yeah.
that, like, once you figured that out, all other pieces fell into place because it gave
Yes,
it
thank you.
a common element, common themes they could all connect to.
Yeah, that was very well put. Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to say. And you know, the ocean is something that I've consistently enjoyed my whole life. Which I think we were talking a little bit about this beforehand, but you know, I grew up on the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and I've always liked swimming in the ocean. Every chance that I've gotten to, I was obsessed with mermaids. Like, I was so determined to find a mermaid for like years of my childhood. And so, grounding my story and my characters in something that I have always enjoyed and likely will always enjoy, I think was important too, because it's, I like doing it. I like the characters, I like the world that they're in, I like the story. And so chances are, if I like it, then, other people will probably like it too. And I think that's why I've managed to take it as far as I have, because I don't enjoy doing anything else. And I spend a lot of my free time just playing around with them and developing them, and because I like to do it. And yeah.
Yeah, and the ocean is really weird.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mythology around it. So there's a ton of things you can explore with that conceit.
Yeah, and that's so. It feels like endless possibilities, to like endless adventures. There's like that thing where it's like, we've discovered more of outer space than the ocean, and it's here, like, on our planet, and that is just so interesting to me. And yeah, I love that element of mystery, of like, what's down there.
Yeah, what are some of the character elements and plot elements that that sort of clicked into place for you once you set on the theme of nautical superstition and folklore?
One big thing was Nine being the son of Neptune. That sort of helped figuring that like aspect out for his character. I was kind of like, oh, what if Nine is the son of Neptune? And then that sort of gave way to a lot more character development with him, just like, and his personality and like all of his emotional arcs and stuff, because then there's this whole background of like where he was raised and like what his goals are and why he ends up with Kid and Styx and Sebastian. And there's backstory with Kid. I'm not gonna say it because it's like kind of spoilery, and I don't want to like give it away. But there's backstory with Kid and Styx that is tied to the ocean and that whole aspect of like mystery and also just Greek gods and Greek mythology, which like very Odyssean. And Sebastian being a fisherman, it all just sort of tied it together. Like, I kind of like had an idea that Sebastian would be a fisherman beforehand, but then once the actual story took place near the ocean and including that, it was like, oh, there's a thing that like sort of ties them all together now. Yeah.
Okay, I can see that now we've mentioned pitch. A lot of people in the chat are now asking about how do you prepare a pitch? What should you do to prepare for a pitch? So I want to start by asking, Nico, what was the experience of participating in Pitch This at the animation conference like?
It was insane. It was like really fun. It was a good kind of insane. It was fun. Getting to work with an industry mentor, having someone to sort of help me just keep me on track kind of and be like, all right, here's the things you need to focus on. That was really helpful and really cool. And getting to see everybody else's pitches that I was pitching alongside was really humbling too, because I was like, oh my God, I'm like, all of these stories are so interesting and engaging, and like mine is like among them. So it was, very humbling. And a lot of, I met a lot of people too, which was great. I mentioned before, I've never actually been to the Ottawa Film Festival before this year. It just like never worked out. So the first year that I went to it was the year that I partook in it, which was, so it was just a lot of fun, meeting people, seeing cool art and, listening to people much smarter than me talk about the industry.
Yeah, the Ottawa International Animation Festival is a great festival. I miss when we would bring all of these artists and animators and producers onto a boat and sort of have them all stranded together.
Yeah.
Always a fun time. I wanted to ask, who was your industry mentor, if that's something you're able to talk about?
Yeah, it was Casey Gonzalez. She was super sweet. Like I think the first time we met, we were just talking about like life, and it wasn't even that tied to like the pitch or anything. We were just meeting, like how are you? What's up with you? Like, you know, she told me about herself. I told her about myself, and it was just a really sweet conversation where we got to know each other on like a personal level, which was really fun. And then you know that I think opened up a lot of trust between us, where I was kind of like, okay, I like, you know, not that I'm particularly untrusting with my characters and other people or anything, but it made it feel like a very safe space to like just talk about my characters. And you know, knowing that all of the feedback was like constructive to make them better, you know?
I think realizing that everybody in the industry is a person can be really helpful. And I mean, it
Yeah.
seems really obvious, but like, you know, the person who created the show that you love is a person who just like, you know, has dinner and has a life and you know, worries about, you know, their next project.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to forget that sometimes.
Yeah. Like even the people we were pitching to, like in the industry, that were sort of the judges, that was like so intimidating. And then I got to go back and watch the like in the moment I was like petrified. And then going back and watching it, like I missed the first few pitches that took place before mine, so I went back to watch them after we were finished pitching, and I was like, oh, they're so friendly, why was I afraid? Yeah.
Nico, I wanted to ask, what kinds of materials do you prepare for your pitch?
Yeah, I do have the presentation that I gave for my pitch up and ready to go if we wanted to show that.
Let's do
Um,
that.
yeah. So I've got it here. The script is completely gone from my mind. I don't remember it, so I'll just sort of walk through what I did. But you know, one thing that was important to me was that the visuals of my pitch were enhancing what I was saying. They weren't just sort of like going along with it. I wanted them to really like give new information as much as they could, alongside the information that I was giving verbally. And you know, it was probably a lot to like as a judge. It was probably a lot. It was probably like, whoa, this is just so much going on. But I don't know if this is the smartest decision, but I would rather have an audience like actively trying to like take in everything before it's gone than have them sort of like bored with the visuals that have been there for too long, you know? So I ended up madly and manically making art for like the 2 weeks before the pitch, and was you know, just a hopped up on adrenaline by the time I actually did the pitch. But yeah, so even here, like I timed it is just a slideshow. I don't have any special, like I don't have any audio, I don't have any animation or anything like that, but I tried to time the visuals with what I was saying. So when I introduced this, I'd be like, hello, my name's Nico, welcome to Port Harbour, where the characters are 9, Sticks, and Kid. So it felt, you know, a little bit more interesting than just showing one visual after another. And there are some slides where it's just one visual after another, but every drawing I tried to show, like, what are the types of shenanigans they can get into? Like, how can I convey their personalities and their dynamic and how they interact with each other? So and you know, this was a slide just like, this is the type of world that they live in, and this is the, like, you know, relationship that they have. So I wanted to show both the grand scale and the more like small personal scale stuff. These were some of the inspiration shows for it, and you know, a little character page so that you know who's who. And then with each character description, I had like, one image, and then I'd click, and I'd have like a couple
I've
other
forgotten about the
comic
reverse
panels.
mermaids.
Yeah. Yeah, they're, aren't they beautiful? Nine is just looking for buff mermen, and he comes across this like weird little reverse mermaid, and is maybe a little bit disappointed. But yeah, so this was sort of to show that. Oops, sorry. This was sort of to show that he has these ocean powers that he can't control because they're tied to his emotions. So he gets spooked and accidentally like wave punches his friend. More like grand visual, and then little comic panels to convey as much of him as a character as I could. This is what he likes spending his time doing, and this is the types of adventures that they go on, where he has to, stop Kid and Styx from causing mayhem everywhere they go. Yeah, so the character descriptions are all kind of like this, just trying to add as much personality to, the info I was giving was very, very compact, and I had to cut a lot of fat because you only have 10 minutes. So I had to, really just get to the core of like, what is the necessary information that you need about these characters? And that kind of felt like I was shaving a little bit of their personality away. So I tried to bring that back with the art. Tried to like add a little bit of personality, a little bit of comedy in the art to keep it interesting. And I'm sure while I was pitching, the people watching this were like, oh my god, what's going on? Like, I was really worried about putting speech bubbles because I didn't know if people were going to be able to focus on the words on the screen as well as the words I was saying. But I test pitched it with a bunch of my friends, and they were like, no, it was fine. So but I did try to keep the speech bubbles as minimal as possible. Yeah, I think we're getting close to the end. I think the line for this one was something along the lines of like, Styx can be adorable, like when she makes friends with a baby Hydra, or she can be nightmarish, like when she makes friends with a baby Hydra, which was fun. And this is her eating pennies out of the fountain, and 9 is like, spit it out. Like, she's kind of a cross between like a little sibling and a dog. Yeah. And Sebastian being completely socially inept. But, even though they make his life a living hell, he still loves them. And then this, I wanted to sort of, I have all of these characters that weren't part of the core of the pitch, so I couldn't include them because it would have been too long. But I was like, there's other characters here too, and you'll love them, trust me. Yeah, and then I just had a little episode description. So that was my pitch. Yeah. That's what I did.
It's really cool because like there are all these different themes that you can sort of see. You can tell that there's like found families. Mm-hmm. I think the nautical theme really comes home with all of this, and I think it's just a lot of fun. What sort of feedback did you receive from the judges that pitched this?
I haven't actually like received that much of it yet. I think one thing that they were asking about was the age range, because that's something that I didn't even know, and I was kind of like, I don't know, maybe like 10 years old. Because like I said, I just make this because I like it. So and I like making cartoons. I like making things that are like child friendly, but like pushing that line a little bit. So I wasn't really thinking about like what age children would watch this at. So that was something that I think I have to just be more aware of. And Heath, the chief content officer at Mercury, did say that they they gave some feedback that he will clue me in on, but it hasn't happened yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always a challenge with anything creative that requires a large investment from a studio is the market side of it, and like
Yeah.
who's going to be the audience and how is this going to get paid for. I think is always really challenging. But I think also being able to take something that you really have a lot of passion for and bring it to the point where you're talking about it in front of a room full of people is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I like for me, I like showing it to people. I like being like, here, look, this is what goes on in my brain all the time. Isn't it funny? Like, I like showing it to other people, and I also like getting feedback. I like knowing what makes people laugh, what doesn't make people laugh. You know, I do spend a lot of time sort of analyzing reactions to my stuff.
Yeah. So there are like all kinds of different ways to pitch a project, but based on all of the research that you did and the process of putting this together, what do you feel like what worked really well for you, and what would you have changed if you had the opportunity to go back?
Yeah. So one thing, like I spend a lot of time just listening to like content creators, like you know, showrunners and stuff, interviews with showrunners, or YouTube videos of like here's how to pitch, or like every informational thing I can get my hands on, I will listen to it like while I'm animating or something, because I'm constantly trying to prepare myself, and then I end up being over prepared, which is better than being under prepared. But you know, at the same time, I think I like the only reason I pitched this was because Tom Bancroft showed an interest in it, and I thought I was nowhere near ready to pitch, but it turns out I was closer to it than I thought. So there's two sides to that coin, but
Okay, I saw that you mentioned before that like Tom Bancroft showed interest to it. How did Tom Bancroft see your stuff? Like, what was the process for him discovering that?
I think his students showed it to him, and he reached out to me on Instagram. He DM'd me, and I don't check my DMs very often, so like it was like 2 months by the time I saw it, and I was like, oh my god, like
Do you get like a notification like, oh, it's from oh.
Yeah, it was crazy, and you know, I met with him and sort of told him a little bit about it, and he was like super into it, and he wanted to like talk more about it with me, and it really just came down to like what I wanted for the show and for the characters, and also where I was at the time, because he is starting up an animation studio called Pencilish, which I think they released the first sort of ad for their one of their projects, and it would have been cool. It would have been like if I did this, it would have been like an indie project, but I would have also been in charge of like organizing an entire team of people, and I was like, I'm not ready for that. I just graduated college. I am still like pulling all nighters to hit my quota now and then. I could not be in charge of like, you know, scheduling and financing, and you know, it was also important to me that if I had people working under me, I would want them to enjoy what they were doing, and be compensated like appropriately. And you know, I not that he wasn't compensating people appropriately or anything like that, but I was like, I think what I want is like a little bit higher budget than what it would have been able to be. So yeah, and that's why I pitched to Mercury, and I wanted. Oh, I don't know if I was allowed to say that. But yeah, or like why I brought it to Mercury. And you know, I'm glad I did, because they recommended that I do pitch this, and I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know you mentioned the like pitching and like, you know, things that I found helpful for that. And one of the things was the structure. And I totally meant to talk about this, but I just talked myself on a different tangent. Structuring a pitch is like way more important than I initially thought it would have been. And even before I did pitch this, I had like a pitch Bible that I had just prepared for myself, like to organize everything. And you really want your pitch to feel like you're telling a story. It's not just like an information dump. If you can make it a narrative, if you can like keep your audience engaged from start to finish, and there's no part where it just feels like empty information or just like necessary information, then you know I think that is super important. So I again, that's like more of me trying to add personality with the art so that it would feel like a story. You'd feel like you got to know the characters from start to finish, and there was no like dull moment.
Yeah, and I mean, pitching a series is a totally different skill than animating or rigging
Yeah.
or making a series. So it's one more thing on top of everything else you need to do to make that a reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm lucky that I enjoy writing. Like animation really is just a combination of all the things I like. It's like art and writing and music. That's what I like. So I'm glad, like I'm lucky that I enjoyed writing because I think that it made writing the actual script for my pitch a lot easier. And I was able to like put more, I was able to sort of like be more confident in what I was doing with it, and being like, maybe this writing is bad. I'm going to restart. Like I had that sort of, I've been like writing since I was in high school. So I had a little bit of an intuition to tell whether what I was writing was good or bad. But yeah, pitching is very much its own skill set.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the challenging things too that artists run into when they first start with a new skill or a new area is that you develop taste a lot faster than you develop talent.
Oh yeah.
And you can sort of realize like, okay, why isn't this good yet?
Yeah.
And it takes time to develop it. And I think that one thing you can really tell with this pitch is that like you clearly put in the time to make this into something that would hold an audience's attention and describe the world of the show that you have created over how many years was it? Adding together your sketch notes and Scattershot and Port Harbour.
I would say from the like very first sketchbook doodles to where I am now, it was probably like 3.5 years. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's a
So
pretty big
yeah.
development cycle.
Yeah, and I think too, I don't know if a lot of people do this, but I feel like I've heard of a lot of people um, thinking that an idea is the thing that will sell a pitch. Like if it's a good idea, that will sell it. But like it's really all in the execution, and not just the execution of how you pitch. It's in the execution of like how you develop the characters and how you develop the story and the world, and you know like an idea is, I don't think there's such a thing as like a good or bad idea, because if you execute something well, anything could be entertaining, um, so I like actually putting my pitch into a log line was probably one of the most difficult things because I was like, I don't know what it is. It's just my characters and their goofy little world. So
How do
trying
you
to like,
summarize this in a tweet?
yeah, I really did the like execution before I did the idea. I would say, yeah.
Yeah. So, for those who aren't familiar with the pitch of this competition at the animation conference, it is a competition. It's a tournament where creators pitch their ideas, their stories, or show concepts. I think it can be there's like a wide variety of things it can be. Usually, it's like a TV show, and you'll talk about the format. But they have similar competitions at other festivals, so it might be worth looking into for those watching the stream. The pitches competition at the animation conference or other similar pitching competitions because they are really cool experiences. Nico, as someone who's been through this, would you recommend this for other artists?
I would absolutely recommend it for other artists. Like I learned a lot, which I think is the most valuable thing. And when Heath recommended that I partake in this, his whole thing was like, it's going to be a really valuable experience, and regardless of whether I won or lost, like it would have either way been and was a really valuable experience. Like, and it was also like an excuse to, you know, make something, if that makes sense. I get stuck in like development limbo completely by my own accord, because I'm just like, I just want to keep planning. I don't want to actually like write anything. I just want to keep planning and like perfecting and developing, because that's fun for me. I mean, writing is fun too, but you know,
Having
it
deadlines
really,
sometimes helps.
yeah, having a deadline, one, to submit something, like even if you don't get into the actual competition, I think it's a valuable experience, because it forces you to like put an idea together and package it in a way that is, you know, digestible. It's sort of, yeah. And then once, if you do, I dropped one of my rings. If you do get into the competition, then it's even more of an excuse. I made like an entirely new presentation. Like none of the art in my presentation is the same as in my pitch Bible, which is what I submitted to apply. And so it really forced me to look at my characters and my story and solidify them, because I had a lot of vague ideas, and it forced me to kind of think about like, you know, what is their relationship with Sebastian? Like, you know, like why does Nine have such a like why is he so uptight? And yeah, sort of solidifying things, I think.
That makes sense. So, Nico, we are almost out of time. Where can our viewers see more of your work?
I'm probably the most active on Instagram. Yeah, that's if I have little doodles, I'll post them there. I I will go through bouts of completely ghosting the internet, but I will post things on Instagram before anywhere else. Yeah, and you know, I hope that I will, you know, be able to make time to do, even if it's just little animatics on YouTube. But yeah, on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, I am at Jade_Smania. So that's where you can find my stuff.
Yeah, and you should definitely check it out, because there are these animations, one of which features an updated version of Sebastian with audio from Flight of the Conchords that I just really, really enjoyed.
Oh, thank you. They're so fun. I literally rewatched their entire show just to like pick little things out that I could animate too, because there's so many good one-liners.
All right, so thank you everyone for watching our interview today. If there are students watching this who are interested in trying Harmony for their thesis film, Toon Boom actually offers discounts up to 84% on student licenses. You can learn more at toonboom.com/students, or you can also ask your faculty about providing licenses. And be sure to join us next week for a panel discussion with participants in Mercury Filmworks' Shorts program. We'll be speaking with Melissa Lynn, Rebecca Kartsmark, and Shane Plant. And if you have not already seen their work, do yourself a favor and look up Mercury Filmworks on YouTube. Their shorts are fantastic, and I really want to get more eyeballs on them because they're great. So thank you everyone for watching, and be sure to tune in next time.